Welcome to Simply Christianity. In this week's video, I want to talk about the atonement, which is a very central Christian belief. So what is the atonement? Well, put shortly, the atonement is the belief that Jesus Christ's death and resurrection save us from our sins and reunites us with God. So in order to kind of unpack this belief, this doctrine, a little bit more, I think we first ought to define what the English word atonement means, because I think this actually gives us some pretty good insight onto the Christian doctrine or the Christian belief of the atonement. Atonement comes from three other English words: at, one, and meant. And from these three words, we can see that atonement is really being at one with someone else, being reunited or united with them. But you might ask, that's not how I've heard atonement used. And that would be true. The modern definition of atonement is a bit different. The modern definition of atonement usually means repaying for wrongs, making wrongs right, things of that nature. So how do these two definitions come together? What reconciles these two different definitions? And I think it's just by understanding what these two definitions mean, we can see that they come together quite nicely, and they come together very nicely in the Christian doctrine of the atonement. When a wrong or sin enters a relationship, that wrong or sin separates or makes that relationship no longer complete. Just think about in your own life. When there's a wrong that enters one of your relationships, when one party wrongs the other, you're no longer as close as you once were. There is something that separates you. And in order to be reunited, in order to get that relationship restored to its original state, something must be done about that wrong. That wrong must be addressed. And that is exactly what we believe happens at the cross. When Jesus dies and is resurrected, he deals with our sin so that it no longer separates us from God. So to recap, Jesus Christ's death and resurrection directly deals with our sins and addresses them so that they no longer separate us from God. Jesus Christ's death and resurrection saves us from our sins so that we can be reunited with God. And this is important because, again, our sins are what separate us from God. And separation from God, we believe as Christians, is the worst thing imaginable because we were made to be with God. And so our fulfillment comes from God. And there are plenty of other videos I've done that address that topic in detail. But that is why we say it saves us from our sins. Because without dealing with sin, without atoning for sin, without confronting our sin, there is no way we could be reunited with God. This is the wrong that separates us from God, and it must be dealt with. And Jesus Christ does that by his death and resurrection. Now, the first question that will probably come to mind is, how does this work, or why is it necessary? And if you're new to Christianity, I'm going to say that simply does not matter. See, what matters is the belief in the thing itself, not the theories on how it works. Christians have many theories of how it works, and it can be very daunting to figure out which one would be true. In fact, it might even act as a way to think that it's false because people can't agree on how it works. And many people do turn away from Christianity because they look at these different theories of the atonement, and they say if they can't agree on it, then it must not be true, or it's an act of fiction. But I think this can be shown to be demonstrably false, and here's why. Let's look at an analogy. I like analogies if you haven't caught on. So if we look at gravity, right? So gravity is a thing that we believe in. We have faith in gravity. And we can explain what gravity is. Gravity is the attractive force between two objects. If I jump off of a great height, I will accelerate at roughly 32 feet per second squared. If I'm in the US and if I'm anywhere else in the world, it'll be 9.8 meters per second squared. It's really the same speed, it's just a different unit system. Anyways, we believe that this works in gravity. And this belief has actually some very important survival benefits. If we didn't believe in gravity, a lot of us wouldn't be here. So gravity is a very important belief, and we believe in the thing itself. And just like I can explain what gravity is, this attractive force and this rate of acceleration towards the earth, I can explain what the atonement is, which I've already done. It's the act of Jesus dying and being raised again, which saves us from our sins. I can explain what the atonement is. But as soon as you ask the question how, if you ask the question how to gravity, how does gravity work? I can't give you an answer for that. I don't even know what that means, but I still believe in gravity. Scientists will give you very different theories about what causes it, how it works. if it's space and time, with this molding of the fabric, but how does that work? And you just can keep asking these how questions, and all these theories develop. And it doesn't matter which theory you believe in. You don't even have to believe in Einsteinian gravity in order to understand how gravity works here on Earth. And that understanding of how gravity works is what makes it a beneficial survival belief. I'm not going to go jump off of a 2-story building thinking that I will be just fine. I'll probably break my legs, So this idea of gravity, this belief in gravity, even though we don't understand how it works, is very useful to survival. And I think the same thing is true about the atonement. The atonement, it doesn't matter how it works when it comes down to it. Christian belief, the foundation of Christian belief, is the atonement itself, not how it works. The Bible, which is where we base a lot of these beliefs off of, doesn't address atonement theory as much at all. We take bits and pieces and try and piece together how it might work. But all the Bible talks about is the atonement itself and that it works. And all that is required in order to receive salvation is understanding how the not how the atonement works, but understanding what the atonement is. And that brings me to my second kind of point I want to make before I close, and that is, but don't Christians say faith is what saves us? So how can the atonement save us if faith is what saves us? And my simple answer to this is you have to look very careful about how Christians phrase the things that they do. When we talk about faith, we say that we are saved by faith or through faith. And what we talk about the atonement, we talk about the atonement is the saving work of Jesus Christ, or the saving action of Jesus Christ. And this might seem a bit confusing, but basically what Christians believe, without going into too much detail, because I think this requires its own video, its own explanation. But basically, faith is the avenue or the thing which allows us to receive this saving work from Christ. The saving has already been done. We are already saved, but in order to receive it, we have to have faith. And Christians disagree about how this faith comes and what it entails. But again, the basic Christian belief, which is what this channel tries to address, and what I want to instill in any people thinking about Christianity, the important thing is understanding that your faith in the atonement is what gives you access or what allows you to receive the gift that it is. Because the atonement is a gift. The one thing that we do know is that God did not need to give us the atonement. It's a gift given by His grace. All right? So the atonement is a gift, and we receive that gift through faith. So I hope that makes a lot of sense. That last bit about faith might be a little bit confusing, but I think it's an important indication because of how Christians talk about it. Please comment below if you think I'm wrong about anything, if you have any questions. I want to thank you to all my subscribers for staying with me. I know this video was a little late, and I apologize for that. Please start commenting about any questions you have. I know that these topics raise a lot of questions and are confusing, so please comment below about that. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. You will be kept up to date with these videos as they come out, and hopefully these help you understand the foundations of Christian faith. So I want to thank you for listening, and